Bacon and eggs, the all-American breakfast. And what could make that all-American breakfast even better? Well, as I recently came across on Twitter, Morlock Publishing tweeted this: breakfast, farm eggs, bacon, hash browns with farm onions, fried in farm lard with farm Concord grapes. Looks delicious, doesn't it? And I'm sure many people would enjoy a breakfast like that, the vegetarians among the crowd not included. But there you go, good, healthy breakfast, right? And John Loth on Twitter replied, a balanced breakfast that built strong men and healthy women for years until the government decided to get involved. Well, there you go. This is farm fresh produce and farm fresh food. That what could be healthier than this? And this is the all-American breakfast, right? Right? Well, I hate to be that guy, but actually, bacon and eggs breakfast was shoehorned into American culture by the father of propaganda, Edward Bernays.
Many years ago, our client was the Beech-Nut Packing Company. We made a research and found out that the American public ate very light breakfasts of coffee, maybe a roll, and orange juice. We went to our physician, found that a heavy breakfast was sounder from the standpoint of health than a light breakfast because the body loses energy during the night and needs it during the day. We asked the physician, after telling him why we were talking to him, would he be willing, at no cost, to write to 5,000 physicians and ask them whether their judgment was the same as his, confirmed his judgment. He said he would be glad to do it. We carried out a letter to 5,000 physicians. Obviously, all of them concurred that a heavy breakfast was better for the health of the American people than a light breakfast. That was publicized in the newspapers. Newspapers throughout the country had headlines saying 4,500 physicians urge heavy breakfast in order to improve health of American people. Many of them stated that bacon and eggs should be embodied with the breakfast, and as a result, the sale of bacon went up. And I still have a letter from Bartlett Arkell, president of Beech-Nut Packing Company, telling me so.
There you go, folks. Beech-Nut Packing Company consciously engineered your desire, not only your desire for the bacon and eggs breakfast, but you're coming to see this as a natural, this is the way everyone ate for generations before I came along, right? Well, no, not right. Now, there's some nuance to this that we have to dig into, but for those who are completely lost, and I imagine most of my audience has heard of Edward Bernays, if you have not, type the name Edward Bernays into the search bar on CorbettReport.com, and bada bing bada boom, you will have episode 33 of my podcast, where I specifically went over Edward Bernays and who he was and what he did. And I've mentioned him in many of my works on social engineering and propaganda besides, because he is really the father of modern day public relations, who literally wrote the book on propaganda, published in 1928. I've quoted from it before, and I'll quote it from it again, because there's no secret here. This isn't a conspiracy. This is 100% out in the open. Edward Bernays, the conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitutes an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. You cannot get more simple, more plainly stated than that. And I know that a lot of people in my audience have heard this quote before, because I have certainly quoted this in my work in the past, but please go through and actually read this book. There are tons of very interesting nuggets in here, and it's not a huge read. It's under 200 pages. So it really is fascinating. And as one example, he goes through here on page 23, breaking down page 1 of the New York Times from the day that he was writing this paragraph. He counted 8 articles on the front page, and he decided 4 of them, or 1/2, are propaganda. And he breaks them down, what those 4 stories are, what they purport to report, and what they're actually doing, how they're serving propagandistic functions. Again, there's no secret here. He spills a lot of the beans and puts it out in great detail. So, for example, those who have seen part 1 of Century of the Self, the Adam Curtis documentary, will have seen Bernays and be familiar with some of his work, doing everything from breaking the taboo against women smoking in American society and then ultimately around the world, and all the way to the preparation of the American public for the invasion or the overthrow of Arbenz in Guatemala, and many other things in between, including bacon and eggs. Yes, indeed. This is a Edward Bernays shoehorned, quote-unquote, invention. Now, as I say, there are some nuances to this. I certainly don't mean to put anyone down for enjoying a bacon and eggs breakfast. I think this type of propaganda it's important to understand that they can't engineer desires into people that they don't already have some proclivity towards. It's not that your taste for enjoying bacon and eggs was engineered into you. It's just the idea that this is a breakfast food, and this particular pairing is what you eat for breakfast, is the work of the Beech-Nut Packing Company. So again, I'm not putting down people for eating this or for wanting to eat this. I'm just saying that this particular pairing has been engineered into you. And obviously this is about something much, much bigger than bacon and eggs. This is about the question of what has been engineered into our society, woven so carefully into the fabric of our society that we believe it to be a natural part of how people existed for umpteen generations before us, when in fact it's a relatively recent phenomenon. And then, extending that forward, what can people be conditioned to accept so that our grandchildren will take something that looks bizarre and foreign to us and assume that it's always been that way? Well, this, of course, is 1928, and although, as I say, Bernays doesn't hide anything, and there are many, many, many tricks of the propagandistic trade that he wrote about in great detail in this book, well, that was nearly 100 years ago. I mean, we're so much more cynical, jaded, media savvy now. People can't pull these kinds of silly and simple little tricks on us to get us to believe silly things, or to do certain rituals, or to have certain ideas in our heads that weren't there before, right?
Here we go. Face your parents. Ready? Begin.
I'm sorry, I really can't watch that. That is honestly child abuse to me, to watch that. And it really is disgusting. I actually feel rage when I watch this, so I can't really watch any more of that. But yes, things can, and still do, are engineered into our society by the invisible government that constitutes the true ruling power of our society in the 21st century, equally as much as that took place in the 20th century under men like Bernays. And proceeding into the 21st century, what will our grandchildren be thinking is utterly mundane, completely normal, the way things has always been? And why would you question it, you conspiracy theorist?